Taliban, 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 Taliban. We.
I want to start by sending our blessings and love to our brothers and sisters in Japan who are going through an incredible tragedy right now. If we can stop for one moment, each one of us, and send them our love and our prayers, I think they will know that we are present in their lives, even at a distance. Thank you. There are always positive influences and those needing growth until we see them as one effect that we can influence the power of our choices. Choices that encompass the best interests of all beings and everything around us. Past revelations, warnings of promised catastrophes caused by prejudice and injustice, denied, ridiculed, and deprived of their critical spiritual value, declare themselves daily in biblical proportions everywhere. The conflict between the old, worn-out systems of the past and the fresh inspiration that dazzles our imagination and fits with the forward thinking of our times is coming to a head worldwide. We're at the crossroads of human reform. Economic and political forces alone don't determine the destiny of society and the world. Reform in the global community begins with the individual. The good news is we own not only the power of mind to energetically intervene with looming disasters we've inherited, we also possess an overall spiritual attitude that enlightens the heart and adapts to every circumstance, allowing us to keep the core of our being persistent in its positive evolution. We must always begin with ourselves. There's a saying, if on some mountaintop there remained but one person of understanding, that person would constitute the assembled community. The purpose of this series on Sufi values is to remember, with you, qualities of our hidden grace, qualities and stages that are the very essence and purpose of the Sufi path. Sufi stands for sincerity, and unity, friendship, inspiration. Inspiration is the gift of the lightness one receives that results from genuine certainty of its good guidance, pure and clear. I've gotten those qualities, that guidance and inspiration from my friend Hafid, and I'd like to introduce him to you and ask Hafid, what is the Sufi definition of inspiration?
First of all, I like to also add to your inspiring words about our brothers and sisters in Japan who are going through a tragic time. And it is, as they say, the human race is like the human body. When one finger aches, the entire body should feel it. So our prayers are with them. As far as inspiration, is exactly what you said. It is a gift. I can only speak from my personal experience. My inspiration is my spiritual guide, but what I learned from him is that this inspiration, which a word which has the word spirit in it, is to be able to uplift those in your presence, which he does to me and others that I have witnessed. It's a gift that not all of us have, but once you tap into it, it generates an overwhelming feeling of warmth and compassion and gentleness, and it also removes barriers at a highest level, possible level. So we to be able to realize that we are all one, united together in our quest for reaching our highest self.
what have you come to learn about yourself and others as a Sufi?
Well, I can only speak from my personal experience. And I can only speak from what I've learned from Sidi Hamza, who happens to be my spiritual guide. And what we learn about Sufism is Sufi to the world is what punctuation is to a writer. It is not a major part, but it's the actual part that gives structure, definition, sense without overwhelming and without detracting from from what the writer intended to convey. Uh, Also, a Sufi is someone who is constantly concerned with easing of hardships, and that is the goal of Sufism, is to become the source of comfort for everyone they encounter.
That's a true mark of an enlightened being. Most believe that teaching requires bringing light to other people's darkness. That's true of many of the cultures and traditions. The Sufi, on the other hand, doesn't see darkness.
Well, teaching is an honorable way of dispensing knowledge, but sometimes it also can be an arrogant way of
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
of projecting what we have accomplished, because beneficial knowledge, as is Sufis, is the main intent of learning in Sufism, is beneficial knowledge that benefits the entire community, not just the person himself or herself, um, is bringing light, but out of others into oneself, rather than the opposite.
Big difference from the norm. You've said responsibility in a human being, in the Sufi manner, is to bring out the honey from other people.
I can only speak for my experience with Sidi Hamza again. His ability to extract nectar from everyone in his presence makes you, redefines your sense of responsibility towards your family, your community, the world in general, because what it does is teaches you that you create a, um, a useful, constructive human being when you uplift them,
Right.
so that others may benefit from interacting with them.
Right. So it works on all planes with everybody. What of humility?
The hardest. Mullah Abdul Qadir Jilani said that all the doors to God are packed except the one of humility. Humility is, for instance, when a person is in love, they cease to exist. It's annihilation. It's the merger of beings. And the ego is put aside in order to be able to serve the loved one who the love is directed towards better. So therefore, when there is no ego, there is no arrogance. When there is no arrogance, there is humility. Humility in this case becomes a gift to the fact that you have tamed and removed your ego to be able to better serve your fellow men.
It's interesting because the heading to this particular part of the series is Love and Let Live. And to me, to some degree, that requires humility.
Well, love itself is a word that is dormant unless it is shared.
Right, right.
So it's not a matter of slogans.
It is known to be difficult to navigate the path without the energy, presence, the fragrance of a guide. Explain why it is necessary to have the participation of one who knows, in the sense of having the experience rather than reading it in books. One can taste a certain sense of it, but one never acquires a certain alteration that takes place.
Well, I feel that the guide, as in my case with Sidi Hamza, his ability to freely dispense and give you a feeling of being peaceful and of growing or of being useful or of appealing to the higher self. It's much easier to learn this science from someone who has completed the journey, not just no words have been spoken between us. This is something that you witness, that your heart senses, and that you feel in his presence. That not only he has completed the journey, but he has reached perfection in every step of the way.
Well, it's interesting because when I had the blessings to meet with Sidi Hamza, at one point he looked at me and said, "Who are you?" And it was a statement rather than a question, because it made me think about what that meant. So I understand that in that simple phrase that said what would appear to be nothing, everything became evident. And when I walked out of that room, I had to raise myself to understand what that meant. In today's environment, there are a lot of people who are intensely affected by everything that's going on in the world.
Understandable.
Totally understandable. And they don't necessarily know how to contain it or to harness it in such a way that it's not harmful, A, to themselves or to someone else. Because I know that occasionally you'll be standing in line in the supermarket and someone will suddenly become aggressive because you accidentally touch their shoulder and they become very aggressive, and the tendency is to turn around and respond. How can one deal with that with a certain kind of equity that allows both people in that situation to benefit, to change the mood, not only in oneself by not reacting, but by giving them something that allows them to feel better?
People, stress basically comes from having lost our comfort zone, or our vastness, or the ability to give without feeling like we're depleting our resources, personal resources.
Right.
And one of Sidi Hamza's grandchildren, whom I spent a lot of time with, one day simply taught me that God is pleased every time you expand the inner space of another human being, and the opposite is felt when you restrict that. So I think by dealing with people from what they have abundance of, which is light, generosity, compassion, patience, you will never deplete. But by physically interacting with people, sometimes you would draw venom rather than nectar.
Right. Thank you so much for this first series that we're doing together. We'll continue this further, obviously. Thank you for placing that knowledge in our hearts. Please stay connected for future episodes in our series, Ancient Wisdom, New Visions. And please subscribe to One World in Concert, YouTube's channel. Don't forget to rate our program and leave your comments. Peace.
We